All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr. We continue our stroll through SEC basketball transfer land as we get another in-conference transfer. Riley Kugel heading from
Ooh.
Florida to Mississippi State, and we will discuss what that means for the Bulldogs and their bully ball that Max always enjoys. But before we do that, Bet Online, your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, live odds when the games are being played. And when the game's over, you can head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head over to Bet Online today, get on the action, you can check out their website. Also, don't forget, use that promo code BLEAV, B-L-E-A-V, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Riley Kugel, Max, was considered a breakout player going into last season. Everyone thought that after a pretty remarkable freshman season, at least he started off, I mean, he finished very well in
Yeah.
his freshman season. Finished averaging 9.9 points per game, shot at about 38% from three, shot at about 46% from the floor. But then you go to last season, and the numbers kind of stayed the same. They didn't really maybe break through to the level that some people thought they would. 9.2 points per game, shot at 31% from three, so the 3-point percentage went down a little bit. The field goal percentages went down a little bit because of that. Still played about 23 minutes a game. Maybe that was kind of the most surprising part, is we expected him, to be someone that jumped up a bit more. Although, when you look at how the roster was built at Florida, the way that they brought in transfers, it maybe
Yeah.
wasn't realistic to think that Riley Kugel was going to wind up playing 32 minutes a game or something like that. I mean, maybe best case scenario, he's playing like 27, 28, something just because of the rotating cast of guards that they had there. And so, either way you look at it, we don't know exactly, maybe why he decided to transfer, maybe why the last season wasn't what the expectation was, a first team All SEC, maybe SEC Player of the Year type candidate. But now he heads to Mississippi State, where it feels like if you're a Mississippi State fan, this is the kind of guy you need, because you do know of the history playing in the SEC, can make shots from the perimeter, and when you pair him, with the Josh Hubbard now, and you start to see what is coming together, at least on the perimeter, there's reasons to be excited, I think, for the Bulldogs.
Yeah. It might be a bit of a different look here for Mississippi State this year. My bully ball fans, don't worry. Still got Player of the Year Cam Matthews. Okay, don't worry. But yeah, I really like this addition just because of the different things that now they can do offensively and perimeter wise that they weren't going to be able to do last year. Before we get into anything, though, wild recruitment here. Let's rewind all the way back to honestly when the season was still going on. And I don't know if you saw it, you had that clip of Bill Self kind of not go viral, but kind of blew up a little bit where he said, I've already kind of started the off season here. We've been working for a while already. Well, guess who was one of his first pickups of the portal? It was Riley Kugel. Okay. So Kugel enters the portal on March 27th, commits to Kansas on the 31st. All right. Put two and two together. Okay. There was communication before the 27th. Matt Norlander comes out about a month later on May 8th, says Kugel is not enrolling at Kansas. And then 8 days later, about a week later, commits to Mississippi State, where he had
Where?
originally committed. If
Yeah,
you
Ben
saw
Howland
that
guy.
that tweet that I pulled up, back where it all started for Riley Kugel. So a little bit of a full circle moment. Thought that was pretty cool that, through everything, back where he originally committed back in 2022 it was. So
Yep.
pretty cool.
They let Howland go after that season. And yeah, he was one of those that you thought, could come in, maybe help turn things around for Howland there. And it just, they decided to part ways, and he goes to Florida. And now, like you said, after a wild sort of sequence where you think he's going
Yeah.
to wind up at Kansas, he winds back up at Mississippi State. And again, I think we always say it's like fit. Anytime we talk about these transfers, and my goodness, we've talked about a lot of transfers, and we talk about the fit and how your game meshes with what the team tries to do.
Right.
And I think it's just, for me, the most optimistic part is how does Josh Hubbard and Kugel play off of each other. I think that's kind of the exciting thing to see what they can do. Obviously, they added Kanye Clary, who we've already done a video on from Penn State as well. And I think those three guys in particular now, you sort of see how are they going to. I mean, like we said, I mean, the thing with Clary and Hubbard is that like they're 5'10", they're 5'11", like they're
Right.
smaller guards, but you feel like you've got to have both on the floor probably based on what we're looking at right now and what their lineup could be. And then, of course, you've got Kugel, who can, kind of now be the bigger 6'5", type swing man, basically, that you're pairing out there, with Cam Matthews, who we know is going to be a starter. And then we see how everything else unfolds in the front court. But I think it does kind of give them a really good, I don't want to say trio, because maybe it should be more than a trio. But if you think about what Hubbard, Cam Matthews, and Kugel and kind of the pairing there, although we've mentioned Clary was a big volume guy joining the mix, and I'm curious to see how the center position plays out. But yeah, like I think I'm more intrigued now by Mississippi State offensively because we were going into this, we were probably looking at it and saying, all right, we know Clary was a volume guy, but boy, Josh Hubbard was going to be the volume guy this year. Like he's going to be taking 58% of the shots, maybe. But now with Kugel in the mix, you see if he can kind of find some of that momentum that he found as an SEC all freshman guy the season before last.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting part of this because, like, if you're a Mississippi State fan past 2 years, you've probably seen a little bit of Riley Kugel. Okay. He was, SEC preseason first team this past year, had a lot of hype around him. Okay. So you kind of have an idea of what Kugel brings. Offensively, he can score in bunches, but it takes him to get hot, to do that. What is a little bit underrated here, Blake, and because we'll talk about, the offense and how he might take a little bit of that pressure off of Hubbard. Hubbard's not going to have to take every single three, like literally every three now. He's got some pressure off of him. But Kugel's a really good defender. He's a really good wing defender. And when you kind of see now, like, what now they have Cam Matthews at the 4. They've got Riley Kugel, who's a fantastic wing defender. I don't think he's up to the physicality of DJ Jeffries, but it's like now that defense that was at the 3 that you thought was going to fall off a cliff without DJ Jeffries, who was one of the best perimeter defenders in the SEC last year. Now you don't fall off that much. Kugel is very good defensively. So I think that's like one angle of Riley Kugel that people are just like, when we're talking about fit, and what Chris Jans likes to do defensively, Kugel fits into that. It's not just how he's going to be able to add a little bit of flash offensively, brings in that nice wing piece defensively also.
I'll let you be the defensive guy. I'll go back to the offensive numbers here. Of course, remember, I'm going to give you the weird Ken Palm stat. There's always a stat that connects when a guy transfers from one school to another. There's always a stat for it, right? Yep. So just keep in mind, remember, Kugel finished 22-23 with 10 straight games in double figures, right? And so if you go back to last season, I mean, he started off well, some double figure games and all of that. But, eventually it's like, well, that kind of went backwards a little bit. We saw the minutes kind of vary a bit. And like we said, a lot of that I think had to do with how other guys were playing just in that guard group, the way they were playing and all that. But there is only one time in Riley Kugel's career, Max, has he played 40 or more minutes. You know who that came against?
I don't think I even have to know.
Mississippi State.
Oh, shocker.
He did that in the SEC tournament in 23, so not this past season, the year before. That game went to overtime. It was 69-68. It was a great game. But, yeah, he played all 40 minutes in that one. And that's what I think is interesting is you just look at kind of the minutes. Like, he was playing a ton at the end of that season. But then you kind of look up this past year, and, there were, some games where I'm looking at it now. I'm like, okay, just find the Mississippi State game this past season, January 24th. He played 19 minutes. Go to, the Alabama game. Played 10 minutes. But still had some of those in between where it's like, all right, he played 31 minutes against Kentucky. He played 29 minutes against South Carolina. And so it was interesting to see kind of how things unfolded. But I think now it's hard for me to look at this and say, all right, that guy's not going to be playing 25 or more minutes next season, just looking at the rest of the roster for Mississippi State and really how they're going to be able to use him. Because when I look at maybe what the guys are going, what the role for the guys behind him are going to be. I'm like, those are probably guys who are going to, give you your spot minutes here or there, but they're not a Riley Kugel that is an SEC starter in this kind of circumstance now.
Yeah, and I was touching on the defense. I'll come back onto the dark side where you like to stay on offense.
Please. You got to score points to win. I mean, come on.
Can't argue with that. So when you look at Riley Kugel's like overall numbers here, it says he shot 31% from three last year, and so you're like, ooh, kind of took a dip. I don't know if I like that. But when you put a little bit more context to it, when he played his biggest games, okay, so Ken Pom likes to separate it into tier A and B. A is Ken Pom top 50. Okay, simple as that. So when he played the top 50, he had 12 games against the top 50. This guy shot 22 of 47 and 46.8%. So throw out that 31%. Okay, last year in SEC play, he was the sixth best shooter in the conference. Guy can shoot. Guy can light it up. Don't put too much weight into percentages with Kugel here.
Yeah. We'll talk more about Riley Kugel and how he fits into Mississippi State, a team that seems like it's pretty much about done building its roster.
I'm liking
it.
I'm liking it.
But maybe about done. I'm not going to say it's official yet, but they're almost done. Maybe. We'll see if they add anyone else to the mix. Don't know who that could be. But if you want to check out all of our SEC basketball stuff, you can do that by hitting the subscribe button here at Southeastern 14. We got all kinds of stuff. Basketball, baseball, football. Check it all out. We're covering every transfer and really start to get into more looking ahead to the 24-25 season in college basketball. So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. We appreciate you watching as always. We'll talk to you again here soon. Southeastern 14.